Imagine this. Your child walks up to you and says, "Mom, I'm bored." You have two choices. You can give them a tablet, turn on the TV, find a game, give them a snack, or you can simply say, "Okay," and walk away. For many parents, that second option feels almost impossible, because when a child says, "I'm bored," we often hear something else. "I need you. I need entertainment. I need something to do." And if we don't give them something, they might become frustrated. They might complain. They might start crying. They might even start fighting with their siblings. So we rush to fix it. But Japanese parents have a surprisingly different attitude toward boredom. They don't always see boredom as a problem that needs to be solved. Sometimes they see it as the beginning of something children need. And this small difference can completely change the way a child learns to entertain themselves. Think about what usually happens when a child says, "I'm bored." A parent might immediately suggest something. "Why don't you draw? Go play with your toys. Let's watch something. Here, take my phone." The child gets an activity. The boredom disappears. Problem solved. But something else disappears too. The opportunity to figure out, what can I do by myself? And that's where boredom becomes interesting, because boredom creates a very uncomfortable moment. There is nothing exciting happening. No screen. No game. No adult telling you what to do. Just you. And an empty moment. At first, a child may complain, "I don't know what to do." But if the parent doesn't immediately rescue them, something often happens. The child starts looking around. Maybe they find a cardboard box. Maybe they start drawing. Maybe they build something with blocks. Maybe they go outside. Maybe they invent a completely ridiculous game. And sometimes they simply lie on the floor for a few minutes. That's okay too, because the goal isn't to make children productive every second. The goal is to give them room to become interested in something on their own. This idea connects with something researchers studying children's play in Japan have observed. Free play isn't simply empty time. The environment around children can help shape how they play, and research on Japanese early childhood settings has specifically examined how environments that support free play can encourage children's initiative. And there's another important part. The parent doesn't always need to become the entertainment director. Sometimes, the parent can simply watch. Japanese research on young children's play has found that children's self-directed play changes as their interests and abilities develop, and that parents' involvement can also change as they observe children becoming deeply engaged in their own play. That's a very different mindset. Instead of asking, "How can I keep my child entertained?" the question becomes, "What happens if I give my child some space?" And this matters even more today, because children have access to more entertainment than ever. A screen can give them something interesting in seconds. A video starts instantly. A game gives instant feedback. A new cartoon is always waiting. There is almost no empty space. And that's exactly why boredom can feel so uncomfortable. A child doesn't have to invent anything. They just have to tap, swipe, watch, repeat. But when there is nothing to tap, the brain has to do something else. It has to search. It has to choose. It has to experiment. And sometimes, it has to create. Of course, this doesn't mean Japanese parents completely avoid screens. They don't. Japanese children also live in the modern digital world. And Japanese researchers are studying the same problems parents everywhere are facing. One recent study of Japanese elementary school children found that children's boredom tendencies were strongly associated with online orientation, while concentration tendencies were associated with non-online activities. The researchers also found that mothers' own boredom tendencies could influence children's online orientation. So the real lesson isn't, "Screens are bad." It's much simpler. Children need opportunities to experience activities that aren't constantly providing stimulation. And boredom can be one of those opportunities. But here's where things get really interesting. Boredom doesn't automatically create creativity. A bored child isn't guaranteed to suddenly become a little inventor. Sometimes, they'll just complain, and complain, and complain again. That's normal. The first few minutes can be uncomfortable. The child may think, "This is boring," and they may look at you like you have personally ruined their entire childhood. But if you immediately solve the problem every time, they never get to practice solving it themselves. This is where Japanese parenting can offer an interesting lesson. Don't confuse support with rescue. You can support a child without removing every uncomfortable moment. You can say, "I know you're bored," instead of, "Here, take the tablet." You can say, "I wonder what you could do," instead of, "Let me find something for you." And then, wait. That's the difficult part. Wait. Because parents are often more uncomfortable with boredom than children are. We hear silence and think something is wrong. We see a child doing nothing and feel guilty. We think good parents should constantly provide opportunities, classes, activities, toys, educational games, sports, music, learning. But children also need something much less exciting: unscheduled time. Time where nobody has decided what happens next. Japanese research has actually raised concerns about children becoming too busy in a competitive society and has looked at how to enrich children's free time. And this is important because Japan isn't some magical country where every child spends their afternoon happily playing outside. Japanese children also have busy schedules: lessons, cram schools, clubs, homework, modern entertainment. Research on Japanese elementary school children has even found that attending more extracurricular lessons can reduce children's available free time and is associated with less independent mobility. So this isn't about pretending Japan has solved childhood. It hasn't. The interesting lesson is the value placed on allowing children to develop some independence within their everyday lives. And that brings us to something parents can actually try. The next time your child says, "I'm bored," don't panic. Don't immediately hand over a screen. And don't turn the moment into a lecture. Just try something very simple. Say, "Okay," then wait. Maybe give them a safe space, a few simple toys, paper, crayons, blocks, a cardboard box, or access to a safe outdoor space. Then let them decide. At first, nothing may happen. That's fine. The child might complain. That's fine too. You don't have to make the boredom disappear. You just have to give them a chance to move through it, because something surprising can happen after the complaint. The child starts looking. They notice something. They remember something. They combine two toys. They make a fort. They draw a strange picture. They invent a game. They call their sibling. They go outside, and suddenly, they aren't bored anymore. Not because you entertained them, because they entertain themselves. And that difference is huge. A child who always needs someone else to provide the next activity learns, "When I'm bored, someone needs to fix it." But a child who gets some practice sitting with boredom can slowly learn, "When I'm bored, I can figure something out." That's a very different message. And it goes far beyond boredom. It touches independence, curiosity, decision-making, self-directed play, and confidence. Because every time a child solves a small problem without an adult stepping in, they get a tiny piece of evidence. "I can handle this. I can think of something. I can figure it out." That's why boredom may be more valuable than we think. Not because boredom itself is magical, but because of what children sometimes do after boredom. They explore. They experiment. They create. They negotiate. They move. They imagine. They discover. And sometimes, they simply learn how to be comfortable with themselves. So the next time your child looks at you and says, "I'm bored," you don't necessarily have to fix it. You might just smile and say, I'm curious what you'll come up with." And then, give them a little space. Because sometimes, the best thing a parent can give a child isn't another activity. It isn't another toy. And it isn't another screen. It's an empty moment, and the freedom to decide what happens next. And maybe that's when boredom stops being the problem and becomes the beginning.